And we are back.
Hello
Episode
again.
140 of...
The Horror Guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are you?
I'm Kevin.
I'm Brian.
And we're here to talk about some horror movies.
We are.
In a short.
As usual, yes. We're going to watch 4 more horror films, including The Angry Red Planet from 1959.
That sounds serious.
Angry.
Angry.
Roar.
Yeah.
I'm a mean red planet. Anything else?
VHS 94 from 2021.
Brand new movie that takes place in 1994, yep.
Vampire in Venice, a 1988 film, a sequel. With
Also called
Klaus Kinski.
Nosferatu in Venice.
Depending on the translation.
Yeah. And The Cult of Chucky. The most recent of the practical effect CGI, yeah. The practical effect Chucky movies.
Yeah, back to the main Chucky timeline.
I hope it's not the last of them, but is the most recent.
Yeah, they did that reboot where he was electronic Chucky.
Yeah. But he was really mostly
Computerized Chucky.
CGI. He was supposed to be more robotic than a doll.
Well, it was a robot, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very high tech, yeah.
Yeah, in the old movies, he's a supernatural rubber doll. In this one, he's a possessed robot.
Now he's back to rubber doll again.
It's complicated. One that's not complicated is The Angry Red Planet from way back in 1959. Directed by
Cinemagic.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Written and directed by Ib Melchior and written by Sidney W. Pink. Stars Gerald Moore, Nora Hayden, and Les Tremaine. Hour and 23 minutes, and there's a trailer in the show notes so you can watch it.
Did you like it?
Spoiler-free Judgment Zone. Yeah, I kind of liked it.
Yeah, as far as these go, it was okay.
It was all right. Yeah, it was...
It was a step above some of the recent 50s things we've seen.
Oh. Yeah, it was. It's way more sci-fi than horror.
Yes.
But there are monsters, and they're really well done for the time period. It doesn't get boring, although the so-called cinemagic effect gets kind of old pretty quickly. Overall, if you like classic sci-fi, this is a good one.
Yeah, I'd recommend. So, synopsis. Serious-looking men enter the Pentagon. Colonel Tregar is in charge. The spaceship that's been missing for so long has been found, but they are assuming it's dead, and the astronauts are dead, but it's coming back. Well, it entered Mars orbit 2 months ago, and they had believed it had crashed, but it clearly didn't. It's coming back. So, now it's time to get that ship, as at least it contains priceless data from Mars, the Angry Red Planet. They decide it's no time to lose in mounting a recovery operation. There could even be someone alive on the ship, but they don't think it's likely.
There could be.
There could be, yeah. So they do their remote control thing, and the Mars rocket ship is going to land in Nevada tonight. Colonel Tom O'Bannon, Dr. Iris Ryan, Professor Theodore Gattell, and Sam Jacobs are the crew that left on the rocket. How many of them survived? Well, it lands, the door of the ship opens, and there is someone aboard. There's 2 someones aboard.
Ooh.
Yeah. The recordings from the ship are all blank. What happened to the crew? Well, Dr. Iris Ryan is sedated, but the unnamed man behind the curtain has some kind of weird growth that is rapidly spreading.
And it's clear that they're trying not to reveal who the surviving man is.
Yeah, we're saving that.
The
for
woman
later.
doctor is alive and well.
Yeah,
one of
she
the
seems
3,
okay.
only one of the
She's
3
really,
men lives.
She's really shaken and psychologically kind of messed up and has to be sedated, but yeah, physically okay. Well, they finally wake Iris up and ask her what happened, and we get the flashback. So she tells it, the stuff already happened.
This is what happened to us.
The 4 are flying the spaceship and on their way to Mars, and everything is going pretty well. Tom and Iris are getting close after 17 days. There's a montage of them doing engineering and science stuff to pass the time, and we get to know them all a little more. 47 days in, they're finally orbiting Mars. They go through the pre-landing check and land on the surface. All good so far, eh?
Yay!
Yeah. Well, the oxygen is too thin to breathe, but there's enough oxygen there to sustain some kind of life. Still, they don't see anything moving out there among the vegetation. They all decide to go outside and see what's up. Iris sees a 3-eyed creature outside the window and screams, which brings her back to the present. And back in the hospital, Iris needs to rest. and the doctors say she has a mental block about something. The doctor explains that drugs could keep her going, but there's a risk of a complete mental breakdown if they force the memories out of her.
We have to know what happened.
Well, especially the guy that's, sick in the other room, too. Iris insists on the drugs. She needs to remember to save the life of the infected man. So soon the drugs take effect, and she remembers it all, and we go back again. The three men on the ship don't really believe Iris saw something at the window. They step outside, and literally everything is red. That's the cinemagic effect.
Notice nobody really doubts any of the men say anything, but when the woman sees something out the window, she must be hysterical.
Oh, that was how things were back then in the movies. And, yeah. That was...
Even though she's the scientist, the doctor of the group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, she's the hysterical woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I noticed that, yeah. Well, Sam has an ultrasonic freeze gun. Tom carries a regular pistol. They see many strange plants as they walk through the red jungle. Iris says some of the plants have what appears to be a nervous system. A large, carnivorous tentacled plant grabs her and tries to eat her. The men fight it off, and they go back to the ship. The professor has a feeling that something is watching them from afar. There may be some kind of hyper-intelligent community mind like the ants on Earth. They find they can't communicate with back home. Their radio signals just bounce back. So they're stuck. The next day they go out again and wake up a 40-foot-tall bat-rat-spider crab.
The bat-rat-spider crab.
Yes, and you heard that right, folks.
It's part bat, part rat, part spider, part crab.
And about 40 feet tall.
Yeah. And believe it or not, actually looks pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah. Well, the sonic freeze gun doesn't work because it's too big, but they manage to drive it off eventually. They continue on and find a big body of sort of water. They don't think it's even quite water, but it's like an ocean or lake that extends to the horizon. And they return to the ship to get their boat because they brought a boat. Why not? And
I don't think any of the Mars rovers that they're talking about nowadays, I don't think any of them include a boat.
Brought a raft, yeah. Well, the three-eyed creature follows them. They decide the place is more dangerous than expected, so they're just going to take off. The professor still thinks there's a controlling force organizing the life forms there, and it concerns him. And they try to launch, but the angry red planet refuses to let them go. They're in some kind of force field. Well, they can't leave, so they decide to go see what's on the other side of the lake, in their inflatable raft. They see an advanced city in the distance. Before they can get there, a giant sea monster surfaces and chases them. That was like the watchdog, or,
maybe
protecting the city, I think, was the implication there. Well, they make it back to shore, run back to the ship, but the monster eats Sam. Now there are three. Yeah. It also touches Tom on his skin and seems to have infected him. Aha, he's the infected guy. Iris says the thing is essentially a giant amoeba. She's the biological scientist of them.
Yep.
Yeah. Tom thinks they can electrify the outer hull, which is insulated from the inner hull, and they work hard rewiring everything. They turn on the generators, and the creature does back off. Unfortunately, Gettle has chest pains from the stress. The radio comes on, and it's a warning to the men of Earth from Mars. They all black out and find themselves launched back in space. Gettle is dead from the takeoff G-forces, or maybe a heart attack, or
both.
Yeah, he did. And Tom's infection is accelerating. Alone on the ship, Iris doesn't know how to rewire the ship back for normal control. It's just doing its own thing, which
autopilot,
which
gets it back to
worked
Earth.
out okay because once
she survived,
once it got within Earth orbit, they could land it. Back in the hospital, the doctors want to know what the voice said. What was the warning? Well, she doesn't remember, and the tapes don't help. They do learn enough from her story that they manage to slow the progress of Tom's infection. Iris goes to the lab and figures out they can trick the amoeba into leaving Tom by using small voltages of electricity. They plan to scare it out of him, and it works. Tom's better. They finally find the warning on the final tape. They have been watching us for centuries. Do not return to Mars. Do not come here. They are warned.
All these worlds are yours. Do not attempt landing here.
Yeah.
I've heard that somewhere.
Something like
somewhere.
that. Yeah.
Well, they make really good use of what looks like the space program and military stock footage, and it all looks about right and fits in very well with the narration.
Yeah, that was neat.
A lot of these 1950s things couldn't afford any kind of budgets. They used old military footage.
Real rockets and real military stuff. Yeah, it fit really well.
And there's a lot of 1950s era science fiction here before the monsters appear, but it's all good, fun stuff. There's lots of retro classic tech in this, which is usually fun. All those buttons and dials and gauges and switches are just cool.
Mm-hmm.
The present day stuff, of course, I still to this day buy a new keyboard every couple months.
Yeah,
I like buttons. I like lights. I like flashy things.
Yes, you do.
The present day stuff, flashing back to the trip to Mars, keeps the story from getting too boring. The creature effects are interesting, creative, and pretty effective for the year it was made. As silly as the Bat Rat Spider Crab was in concept, it looked pretty cool. We never do see what's in that Martian city.
No,
we never see the intelligent Martians
sea creature
either.
kept them away. Yeah.
The film used something called the cinemagic effect on Mars. Everything is awash in a bright red outside the ship, which was probably intended to make the hand-drawn, two-dimensional scenery, fake plants, and live actors blend together better on a low budget.
Which I think worked okay for that.
The success is mixed.
It's like super saturated red. It's not just lit red. I don't know.
Yeah, you mostly just sort of see their outline. It's sort of like a rotoscoping almost, where you see their outlines.
It is a kind of interesting effect.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting to see.
Mm-hmm.
It gets kind of old after a while, but I would say it's a one of a kind, but they did this for one other film at some point.
Mm-hmm.
That was not horror, I don't think.
Yeah.
I want to say Abbott and Costello.
Yes, Abbott and Costello in space.
Yeah, or Go to Mars or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What's the furthest thing from Mars? Worst segue ever. How about the Cult of Chucky?
Okay. Lots of things.
2017's Cult of Chucky, written and directed by Don Mancini, stars Alison Dawn Duarn, Alex Vincent, Brad Dourif, hour and 31 minutes. Trailer in the show notes as usual.
Oh, you know what? I just saw something about the cinemagic process.
Uh-huh.
It was actually the result of a film developing mistake.
We've ruined all the footage. Well, we can use it anyway.
It says the budget was slashed mid-production, so the producers considered turning the film into black and white to keep the cost down. One reel became accidentally double exposed, which produced a shimmering, vaguely psychedelic glare that the director latched onto and went with that and turned it, it was like black and white, only overexposed and red.
It was better than black and white.
Yeah, so he went with that.
Yeah, it was cool. It was different.
Colored it red and said, hey, yeah, that looks good.
Need more cinemagic films.
Yeah.
Or not.
So anyway.
Okay,
Cult
so
of Chucky.
Chucky. There's a new Chucky gimmick in this one, and it's a lot of fun. The special effects are good and mostly practical rather than CGI. The acting is fine, and we see most of our favorite characters from past films here. We both liked it.
Alex Vincent is all grown up.
Yep, he's in it. The little boy from the first movie and some of the others.
That was 1988.
The first one?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Uh-huh, yeah.
And what's her name? What's it? Nika. The character that came out in, which one? Seed of Chucky?
Yeah, I think so.
Whichever one came before this. I've kind of lost track of the sequence now.
I think it's Seed of Chucky.
Yeah, anyway, who is she supposed to have been? Was she
Brad
Charles
Dourif's
Lee
daughter.
Ray's daughter?
Brad Dourif's daughter.
In real life, yes, but she's somebody's daughter in the movie, too.
Oh, she is?
I think she may be his daughter. I don't remember.
Okay, I missed that.
She's not just some random girl.
Okay,
I don't remember. We got to see that if we didn't already.
Yeah?
I don't think we saw it for the show. All right, well, Andy, the kid from the original movie, is out on a date.
Curse of Chucky was the previous one.
That's the one that
Yes.
introduced Nika. Okay.
Yes.
And she's in it, and a lot of pretty much everybody's in this. All the characters from previously. Andy, the boy from the first movie, is on a date, and his girlfriend thinks he's a gun fanatic because he owns one. Why do you have a gun? Why would you have a gun? What guns are terrible? Why do you got a? She's obviously an anti-gun nut, and she makes a big point out of it.
She sure does.
Well,
And he admits he's got...
he owns one.
maybe
I own a
2
gun.
guns.
Yeah,
Two guns.
He says he got 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Because he wants to protect himself, but he's vague about protecting himself from what? Well, she knows. She's Googled him, and she knows the whole story. And we get a few flashbacks to what happened in earlier films, and then the girlfriend dumps Andy. If she knew what he was all about before the dinner, why go on the date?
I don't know. I don't understand.
I want to go on a date with this kid that's had this crazy doll chasing him. He's part of... Yeah, no.
And then cashes out halfway through the... Yeah.
Well, Andy goes home, and we see that he doesn't own a gun. He's got a whole frickin' arsenal in his house. He opens up his safe, and he has Chucky's still living head in there. It's pretty badly damaged from previous films, but it's alive, it's awake, and they can talk.
Plus their play sessions. Yeah.
Yeah. He takes off the gag and talks to it. I guess it's just you and me again tonight, pal, he says. Then Andy tortures his best friend on a regular basis. Credits roll. Well, that's a way to get started.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then we go over to Nika, who is in the hospital getting electroshock treatment. She still has nightmares about Chucky. Her psychiatrist, Dr. Foley, explains that Nika was the one who killed all those people, and she only imagined a killer doll. Again, this all happened in Curse of Chucky. He's having her transferred to a medium security institution. Nika starts to get settled in at the new place, which looks like a Soviet prison on the outside, but is reasonably nice on the inside. Yeah, it's one scary-looking brick building on the outside, isn't it?
But it's pretty nice inside. It is. Yeah.
She meets Michael, gives him some chewing gum, and they have sex.
That escalated quickly.
Very, very.
Yeah.
Of course, if you're in the psycho ward, I mean, you take what you can get.
Yeah, I guess.
Angela thinks that she's a ghost, and she says Chucky told her that he'll be coming for Nika soon. Dr. Foley pulls out a Chucky doll that he bought at Hot Topic. Madeline, one of the other patients, grabs the doll and claims that it's her baby. She soon finds out that Michael has multiple personalities. Yes, they're all crazy there. Well, it is an asylum after all.
Yeah, what'd you expect?
Tiffany.
Up to that point, he did seem pretty normal, though.
Yeah. Tiffany comes to visit Nika. She's her niece, Alice's guardian. You look exactly like Jennifer Tilly, she says. Yeah, I get that a lot.
She would, yeah.
And she's come to say that Alice is dead. She also brings a Chucky doll. Alice used it in her therapy. When left alone, this doll blinks.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute. Chucky's head is at Alex's house. How is this doll doing things?
Uh-huh. How indeed.
Within seconds, he's armed with a scalpel and stalking the halls of the asylum. Chucky sneaks into Nika's room, and she's already cut her wrist open in a suicide attempt. Next morning, she wakes up just fine and sees the message in her own blood. Not so fast. Chucky has sewn her arm up, and nobody ever notices the stitches again.
No, they don't.
Angela the Ghost Lady, however, is very dead in the same way. Chucky did it is written in her blood puddle. Huh, that doesn't cast any doubt on Nika, does it?
Not at all suspicious.
Andy watches a video of him demonstrating Chucky's living head to Dr. Foley, who says it's a great trick. The real Chucky laughs at the video and taunts Andy. Maybe this really is all in your head. Well, we've seen Chucky in 2 places now, so maybe it is all in his head.
Yeah, something's going on.
Meanwhile, at the hospital, we get a whole bunch of is it real or are they just crazy scenes. Foley thinks it's mass hysteria, which seems logical up to a point. Chucky kills Claire next, and we see that now Chucky can be in more than one place at a time somehow. Yep, it's real.
Mm-hmm.
Andy reads about the deaths in the newspaper and wonders how this could be possible since he has Chucky on his desk. Nika thinks Chucky has replicated himself into other dolls. We also see that Dr. Foley isn't particularly ethical or altruistic either. There's always an evil doctor.
There does seem to be.
Chucky tries to tempt Nika into killing Foley, but she won't do it. I'm not a killer. They always say that, don't they? Michael has acquired a new alias. Now he's Charles, and he seems a lot creepier. Andy is making his way to the asylum, but Tiffany calls and tells him that the cult is growing all the time. Andy arrives and has himself committed. They won't let him in to see the doctor, so he punches the guard and has himself committed as a lunatic.
I don't think it works quite that way.
It doesn't quite work that way. It doesn't work that fast.
Yeah.
And it certainly wouldn't work in like minutes.
No, they would haul him off to the regular jail.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Foley gets a package, and guess what's inside? It's another Chucky doll.
What?
Who sent that?
Huh.
Don't know. Meanwhile, Madeline is killed by her baby. Nika warns Foley that Chucky is going to kill him too, but he ignores her. Before long, Nika finds herself surrounded by 3 Chuckies, and he explains the whole thing. They have a gruesome party with one of the orderlies. What's more dangerous than Chucky?
3 Chuckies.
You got it. Tiffany shows up and kills the security guard. Chucky calls on Dembella to give him the power. And before you know it, Nika is up and walking around for the first time, now possessed by Charles Lee Ray. We see a dead doll laying next to the doctor on the floor. This time, Foley doesn't survive. Nika/Charles confronts Michael/Mark/Charles. It's getting complicated.
It is. Yes.
And calls him out on being a poser. Finally, Chucky goes after Andy, who actually knows what he's doing now. He can fight back.
Yeah.
Nika, Tiffany, and the Alice doll drive away for another happy ending, leaving Andy locked alone in a cell. Another happy ending.
Explain that when the police finally show up.
Well, he didn't do it. He's locked in a cell. Yeah, I don't think that whole thing about instantly committing works like that.
No.
Then again, it's not a completely legitimate mental hospital anyway, because the doctor's really kind of crooked. Whatever. I really, 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 really prefer the practical effect Chucky over the newer CGI versions.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not one of those anti-CGI people in general, but here it works.
He is a rubber doll.
He
and that's
isn't
how
supposed
he
to look real. He's a toy.
Yeah, and he looks like a toy puppet doll, and that's how he's supposed to look.
His plasticity is supposed to look like that. If you had a plastic doll that was animated, that's what it would look like.
Yeah.
Too much reality does not help in this case. The gore shots here are really well done and over the top, and of course the jokes are, well, it's Chucky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The only thing better than Chucky is 3 Chuckies. How do you spell that? Chucky Y-S or Chucky I-E-S?
Y, I think. Chucky, yes.
Whatever.
Y''S.
3 of them working together. The Tiffany/Alice doll is there from previous films, but she doesn't really do anything. She sits in the back seat and laughs. They almost try to do too much for a single film, but as one installment in a series, it's very good.
Yeah, it is. One of the better ones, I thought.
Yeah. So who sponsors this show anyway?
I don't know.
The Horror Guys books.
Oh.
So go to horrorguys.com/books and buy a book.
There you go.
Quickest commercial ever. Okay. Did we see a short film this week? Yes, we did.
We did. What'd we see?
What'd we see? We saw No Thank You.
No, thank you.
You want to see this movie? No, thank you.
No, thank you. Would you like me to read the note?
Sure.
No, thank you. Oh,
It came out in 2020.
And the director was Rachel Drummond. Writer, Nina Concepcion.
Works for me.
Yeah. Stars, Nina Concepcion and Melissa Gavarete.
All right.
Runtime, 6 minutes. And we have a link in the show notes.
Yes, you can go watch this one right now.
Yeah. So the world is ending, and one roommate wants to leave and the other wants to stay behind. They aren't here yet, but they will be soon.
They're
says
coming
the smart
for
one.
you.
And where are they really going to go? What happens when they have their periods? What happens when she can't refill her Zoloft? I'm a cozy girl, not a camper. It's going to suck out there so bad, we're going to sleep in nasty places, and we can't even deal with ants in the bathroom. Well, Brian's commentary. We quickly learn which of the two is correct. Yeah, that's true. Definitively. Yeah. This one proves that the world is simply doomed. Yeah. The pandemic has proven that we as a species can't deal with change, but this film takes it to a whole new level, but this time it's with zombies.
Yeah.
Not a disease. Yeah. Anyway, this was a good one. We both...
Yes, we did. We both liked this.
Definitely worth checking out on this one.
And that is a thing, these end-of-the-world apocalypses, you all think about how we would shoot the zombies, and it would be kind of fun in its own way.
Oh, most people wouldn't.
Most people would die in the first day.
Yeah, most people wouldn't be able to function well.
I know The Walking Dead, they had that one episode where the one girl had couldn't find her insulin, and they had to carry it in a cooler. That became a plot point for an episode or two.
And that wouldn't last.
And she died.
And the insulin would run, the insulin would run out, yeah.
Yeah.
With nobody making more, yeah.
And she talks...
And it's perishable.
This one's a comedy joke kind of thing, but yeah, what do you do if your drugs run out? Mm-hmm. You die, because that's what happens. Who else dies? Nosferatu. He died in his previous movie.
Well...
A week or two ago, we reviewed Nosferatu.
And here he is yet again.
Yeah.
How do they keep doing that in these movies?
Nosferatu was from 1997, wasn't it? That sounds about right.
Yeah, I think so.
And we reviewed it about 2 weeks ago, and we kind of liked it. It was all right. It was a little too artsy-fartsy. Not enough action.
Are you talking about their Nosferatu?
Werner Herzog's Nosferatu.
That wasn't 97. This one's 88.
This says 98.
70s. No, 1988.
88, okay.
Yeah.
I should probably
the other
fix
one
that.
was like 1977.
All right. It was that far back.
Yeah.
Huh, okay.
Let me look up and confirm that.
Details.
Yeah.
All right, well, anyway, Klaus Kinski was in a Nosferatu film directed by Werner Herzog that we reviewed.
1979.
79.
Nosferatu
okay.
the Vampire.
I thought this came out the very next year. Okay, this was like 9 years later.
Gap, yeah.
All right.
And Werner's not involved with this
No,
one.
he's not with this one.
But they brought back Klaus Kinski.
Yeah. It's the sequel, Nosferatu in Venice, also known as Vampires in Venice, just a translation thing, directed by Augusto Caminito, and Klaus Kinski did some of it as well. Written by Alberto Alfieri, Leandro Lucetti, and Augusto Caminito. Oh, my. You're getting a rhythm with those names. Stars Klaus Kinski, Barbara de Rossi, Yorgo Voyagas, Christopher Plummer, and Donald Pleasance.
That
took a turn for the classy, didn't it?
There. Yeah.
Hour and 37 minutes, trailer in the show notes. Okay, spoiler free. It's creepy. Add some neat things to the vampire lore. It's much more fast-paced and less artsy-fartsy than the original. And if you could tolerate the first film, this is a much more straightforward vampire story.
Yeah, it was.
With Klaus Kinski, again, nicely adding his strangeness to the role. And everything I read about that guy, he is just weird.
That's what I keep
And I don't mean acting.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's something.
And he brings his weirdness to the set from the stories that I read.
Which doesn't sound like a good thing from most of his co-stars.
Yeah, so the one gal especially in this one. Yeah.
Well, he raped 2 of these women in this movie.
In
real life.
Yeah, he got
a little carried away with those scenes.
A little too methody or something. Yeah. If you look on the IMDb trivia mentions it.
Yeah, it does.
And I read about it other places too. Yeah. The one where, according to Luigi Koji, the script called for Kinski to grab his victim, Audrey, and just bite her on the neck.
The vampires do that, yes.
Yeah. Instead, and there's the scene. Yeah, they kept much of the scene. Yeah, he rips her clothes off. Okay, here's the story. Instead, he charged at her like a wild animal, actually beat her up for real, ripped off all her clothes and undergarments, and started biting her on the vagina.
What?
Yeah. Audrey fled the set crying. Kinski maniacally screamed bitch at her as she ran off. And this is supposedly a documented...
Okay.
Yeah.
And she had to come back and do more scenes with him?
She did not, no.
She didn't come back?
No, she was done.
Yeah, she just sort of disappears halfway through the film.
Yeah, and there's a reason she's no longer seen in the movie. Yeah, she was done.
Yeah, okay. So, first of all, I am fully aware that Nosferatu is simply another word for vampire, but since he's never named here, that's what I'm going to call him. He's not Dracula, he's not Orlok, he's just Nosferatu. All right, so as the credits roll, we see hunters in the field shooting at ducks. One of the men shoots a vampire bat by mistake, but he says that's okay because they're cursed. And then we move on to the real movie. It had very little to do with anything.
And then, it's a kind of a wraparound, too. It goes back to him at the end.
Yeah. Professor Catalano narrates the story, explaining that he's devoted his life to the study of Nosferatu and his disappearance during the Great Plague. So the first movie had Van Helsing, and the character was called Dracula in that one. Van Helsing was like the most useless character in that film.
Oh, he certainly was, yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen such a useless, more do-nothing Van Helsing.
Sometimes they're useful and sometimes they're not.
So this is kind of the Van Helsing character for this film, but is very clearly someone a little more complicated. Complicated and competent.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the priest, Don Alvise, is with the princess, a creepy old woman who says Catalano has come to destroy the peace of the village. Catalano mentions that he expects to die very soon, although he doesn't say why. Catalano is the leading expert on vampirism. Vampires are everywhere, he tells Una and Dr. Barnable over dinner. Maria takes Catalano into the catacombs 30 feet underneath the Great Canal of Venice. There's a crypt down there with a locked coffin. It's sealed with iron bands. She says Nosferatu is in the tomb, buried during the plague hundreds of years ago. She wants to open the tomb and set him free. Catalano explains that that's a very, very bad idea.
Yes, that would be.
Yeah. That night, Catalano goes snooping, and the princess knocks him out with her cane, which is just sort of a funny scene. This little old lady beating him up.
Mm-hmm.
Next morning, the princess explains the family curse to him. There's always a family curse when there's a vampire in the basement.
There is.
We flash back to a priest and a couple of helpers doing exorcism in that very same building long ago. They open the door, and Nosferatu is in there. Nosferatu uses his magic to bring up a wind that blows all three of the clergy out the window to be impaled on the fence below. Nosferatu disappeared shortly thereafter, not to be heard of again. That was a kind of a neat scene.
He's very
They're
powerful.
trying to do like an exorcism on him, and he's just not having it.
Yeah, I got your exorcism right here.
The princess, he never laid a hand on him, though.
No, he didn't need to. Yeah, he's telekinetic.
The princess calls for a medium to come over, but Alvise doesn't approve. Catalano explains all the ways a person can become a vampire, and from what he says, there ought to be a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. It's quite a list.
Yeah. Alvise leaves as the seance begins. The Catholic Church does not approve of seances. And he does get a little annoyed. He gets annoyed a lot in this.
He does. He's like a
this is Donald Pleasance's character.
Walking annoyance, yeah. And she's, and the seance lady's like, yeah, whatever, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yes. She calls on Nosferatu, and we see him rise from a coffin and climb up the steps. Although it's not the sealed coffin we saw earlier. Henrietta is one of Nosferatu's descendants. Didn't know he could do that. And she calls to him from the seance. He hears her. She passes out and the seance is over. Catalano and Barneville run downstairs to check on the sealed coffin, which is, still sealed.
That wasn't the one he was in.
No, he's somewhere else.
Yeah.
Surprise!
Yeah.
Nosferatu must have been somewhere else all along, but he is awake now. He stumbles along the beach until he runs into a gypsy beach party. They know he can make them immortal, but he wants to know who summoned him. Well, the gypsy woman pulls out a crystal ball and shows him who called. Oh, now stereotypical or what?
Very much
Gypsy
so.
woman with a crystal ball, really?
Yes.
Well, he drinks from the woman and her daughter, and he's recharged. Apparently, these gypsies had been watching over his crypt for the last 200 years. It's carnival time, and there are fireworks and everyone is wearing strange and creepy ornamental masks. Doesn't impact the story at all, but it looks cool for about 2 minutes.
Yeah, those are some fun scenes.
Yeah, those are some neat masks.
Yeah.
Nosferatu comes home and runs into the princess, who recognizes him right away. She then falls out the window and onto that same spiked fence. Yeah. Catalano opens the crypt in the basement, and the woman inside sits up, but then immediately decomposes. Catalano finds mercury in the tomb, which is the only metal that can truly kill a vampire. I haven't heard that one before.
I hadn't heard that before.
I mean, sometimes it's a steel. You got to stake them with a steel rod through their heart. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a wooden stake.
Mercury.
Mercury is a new one.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Nosferatu tracks down Henrietta at the ball, and she looks just like the woman in the painting that the princess had. She also resembles the woman that dissolved in the crypt. Huh. He follows her home. He comes into her room after bedtime and does, things to her.
Mm-hmm.
She explains what happened to Catalano in the morning. Nosferatu, in the meantime, viciously attacks Uta Barneville. Never see her again because she quit the movie.
Yep. That was enough for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Catalano and Barneville set up an ambush for the vampire, but he comes in from behind them instead. They shoot a great big hole right through him with a shotgun. It's a big hole. It's a nice special effect.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah.
You run your whole, you run your hands, your head, anything through that hole. It's a big hole. But it heals up instantly. He then grabs the shotgun and bends it over double like a toy.
Yeah, there's just really no dealing with this Nosferatu.
Yeah, he's not easy.
Yeah.
Catalano does the whole get back spiel. You know, the whole exorcism, get back, son of Satan kind of thing.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
The Nosferatu just makes his cross get hot and burns his hand. Henrietta offers himself to him willingly, but the strange sister, Maria, follows them into the church tower and jumps to her death. Except Nosferatu flies up and grabs her before she hits the ground. It's like Superman. He just flies up and grabs her.
Yeah.
Catalano, Alvise, and Barneville figure out that he's probably hiding in the old plague cemetery. Alvise yells at Catalano, who gives up hope and kills himself. What?
What?
The main guy just gives up.
Yeah.
Donald Pleasance finally nagged him to death. Christopher Plummer couldn't take it anymore. I'm done. Nosferatu says only Maria can help him attain death, which is what he really wants. She wants to help him get that too because she loves him. We were told that true innocent love can cause his immortality to end. Barneville and his friends come to the island where Nosferatu lives. They have shotgun shells filled with mercury this time. Okay.
That'll stop him, won't it?
Maybe. They find 3 coffins. One for the gypsy girl, one for Henrietta, and one contains Nosferatu himself. They stake him first, and he turns into Una, who was disguised with magic.
Trickery.
The real Nosferatu is off having sex with Maria. The men break in to shoot them both, but neither of them die right away. Barneville runs into Henrietta, who is really Nosferatu in disguise.
More trickery.
So he's a tricky one.
Yeah, he is. He's a crafty one.
Yeah, Barneville is killed pretty messily. Maria wants Nosferatu to turn her into a being like him, but he doesn't want to do that to her because he loves her as well. They walk off into the fog together. She appears to be bleeding to death, and he doesn't seem to know what to do. What will happen?
We'll know.
Don't know.
We'll know on the third one.
Good luck with that. It's been an awful long time for a third one.
Klaus Kinski's still around. They could make another.
He's not. He's dead.
Oh, is he?
I think so.
Oh.
That sounds like a check.
Oh, that's disappointing.
Yeah, I think he's been dead for a long time.
Oh.
Okay, so who knew Venice was so foggy?
Oh, he died in 1991?
Yeah, okay.
What?
Like 3 years after this.
Where have I been? That's 20 years ago.
You didn't have the internet in 91.
Ago.
Why would you know?
30 years ago.
Yeah. It's an old movie.
Well, but
he wasn't real young at the time.
Huh.
How old was he?
He was 65 is all.
Oh, okay.
Not super old.
Just from the stories I hear, I bet he lived pretty hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not to mention maybe he had some mental issues. He's a strange one.
You wonder, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
All right, so who knew Venice was so foggy? This is one of those vampire movies that take place entirely at night, but all the outdoor scenes look like they were shot in bright daylight with a hazy filter. Huh.
Oh, actually, he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder.
Okay, so he had to work with a lot of people in that.
just the kind of actor you want to work with.
Yeah. All right, so this whole thing with the bright daylight and the hazy filter, it makes following the passage of time difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to tell if this was shot over a period of, or takes place over a period of 2 or 3 days or months. You can't really tell. There probably should have been some indication that the vampire, after being locked in a box for 200 years, would have a little trouble adapting to 1988 Italy. They now have electricity, motorboats, recorded music, and lots of other things he had never experienced. He doesn't show any confusion or curiosity at all. I mean, if you came from 17-something, how would you even turn on the lights?
He just seemed to know.
Yeah. He just knew all these things.
Mm-hmm. Well, there was the fairly recent Dracula that explained,
I mean, sometimes it is a fish out of water kind of thing.
Well, no, but he drinks the blood of someone and takes on their knowledge and experience and some of their memories. And
you're talking about the BBC 2020 Dracula. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think that's the only time I've ever heard that power mentioned.
But it
worked for that.
It made me think of it for this. Like, maybe that was the case with this, and they just don't tell us that.
Yeah. Well, this one is much less tedious than the first film. It still has some excellent locations and sets, but it doesn't dwell on them for ridiculous lengths of time the way the first one did. It adds some fun things to vampire lore. We're told that he only sleeps 24 hours every 24 days. So, you can't necessarily find him in his coffin most of the time.
Yeah, very rarely.
He can only really be killed with mercury. He can be seen in a mirror if he wants to work at it.
And even getting shot with mercury didn't do much to him.
No, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the scene. He looks in the mirror and there's nothing there.
But he concentrates.
And then he concentrates and he appears.
Makes himself appear, yeah.
Even his ability to withstand the daylight is questionable. Some of those, at one point she says, "Don't you fear the daylight?" And he says,
Nah, not really.
Still, it is a bit long, and the music is very dated. It's a Vangelis score. At one point, I commented halfway through, they're going to turn this into Chariots of Fire before it's over.
And that's why it sounded like Vangelis. Right. It was them.
Yeah. I definitely liked it better than the first one, which tried to be weird just for the sake of being weird. No rats appeared in this movie.
No?
Yeah.
No.
This one at least had a good story behind it. So, yeah. I suppose you have to watch the first one before the second one. You should anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, it's way better the second one. Well, then, do you like anthologies?
I do. I liked this anthology.
I like this anthology, too, mostly.
Mostly?
Mostly.
Okay. I liked them all.
VHS, 94.
I like the wraparound the least, actually.
Yeah, that
but
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's footage found in 94, supposedly, although the movie was just released this year, 2021. Directed by Simon Barrett, Stephen Kostansky, and Chloe Akumo. Written by Jennifer Reeder, Chloe Akumo, and Simon Barrett. Stars Anna Hopkins, Christian Potenza, Brian Paul, and of course a bunch of people because it's an anthology. Hour and 43 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. Spoiler-free judgment is that it's a 5-part anthology, all based on a found VHS footage gimmick, just like the previous 3 films in the series. I thought there was more of them than that, but there's only 4.
That's all. Yeah.
3 of the 5 stories are really good, and they all come at the beginning, so you can turn the show off halfway through if you want. All right, well, we start out watching some creepy old VHS footage where we see a bloody girl counting down from 10. And then we see a bunch of SWAT cops and camera people roll out and raid a building. It seems to be some kind of a cult housed in an airplane hangar. They find the owner of a video store who apparently plucked his own eyeballs out.
What a party.
They find the rest of the cultists all sitting in front of a bunch of TVs. We then focus in on a newscast. This is leading into the first story called Storm Drain. The newscast talks about this alleged rat man who lives in the sewers. They interview several nut jobs in the search, and the reporter goes into the tunnel to report. She hears something behind her and has to go again. They investigate further and find someone's camp in the sewer. Then they run into Bill, who kind of looks like a rat, but he says he is not the rat man. What they eventually find is a lot stranger than expected. This is the best newscast ever.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Which is then followed up by a commercial for the Veggie Masher, which is also good. It's got some fake commercials in it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, back in the real world, the SWAT team continues to explore the building. and they find a church full of bodies, mannequins, and eyeballs. There's a big screen TV in there that shows the next segment called The Wake.
The wake?
It's a funeral at a funeral parlor.
Worst wake ever.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty bad ones. The family of the deceased is said to be a little weird. Haley is there to record the wake. No one shows up for a very long time, but she plays the funeral music and records the empty room anyway. And at this point, I was expecting she'd play back the video and see that there was a crowd in there, or something, ghosts or something. That's not what happened.
No.
It starts to storm, and the lights blink on and off. She hears the occasional thumping from the coffin, and that creeps her out. Then the power goes off altogether. She goes out to grab some candles, and then when she comes back, the coffin is sitting on the stand crooked. It wasn't before. She calls her boss, who tells her to open up the casket and calm her mind about the condition of the body. There's no way that guy's in there, alive.
Put your mind at rest. Take a look at the body.
But before she can do that, one man shows up for the wake. The man talks to the casket for a minute and then leaves. A friend calls and tells Haley that the corpse was a mass murderer who was all over the news. One thing leads to another, and then the tornado siren goes off. This is not going to be a good night for Haley. Back to the cops in the building. Now they find a toy room with toys, bodies, and one small TV. Some of the cops have stopped checking in, which might be problematic. On the little TV, we see one called The Subject. I think this is the best story of the bunch.
This was my favorite, yeah.
Yeah, mine too. We see a show about a human head on a mechanical spider body. It burns up, and the doctor explains that experiment is a failure.
Very much so. Yeah.
Just a head on a spider body.
Mm-hmm.
He starts another tape, and this time he's doing some kind of brain surgery on 2 donors. Eventually, the subject wakes up, and he says the experiment is a success. He has combined human and machine. We watch the rest of the video recorded from the subject's eyes. The doctor continues to graft parts onto human bodies. The subject sees herself on the news as a missing person. They fight, and just as the doctor's about to turn her off, the police come to the door. The police break in and kill the doctor. The police think it's a mercy to kill the suspect, but then she runs off. It seems the old doctor had made alternate arrangements.
Yeah, and things really go badly from there.
That's just getting started.
I was kind of expecting it to, kind of wrap up when the police came in. No, that's just getting started.
We're just getting going there. Yeah, that's definitely the best of the 5.
Yes.
Then the cops, back in the real world, start to notice there's a problem. They seem to be vanishing. One cop stares at a blurry TV screen. It starts the next segment called Terror. A group of armed men go into a bunker of some kind. They find a chained man and shoot him in the head. There are crosses and garlic all over the walls. America is plagued by a black cancer, we are told. These men are going to take back America. They're insurrectionists, ready to bring the corrupt America to its knees. Yeah, you've seen these guys on the news before. You know how this works.
Yeah.
The next day, they execute that same man again, removing all doubt that they aren't just completely deluded goobers.
Wait, what? He's still alive
He's
after
still
getting shot in
alive.
the head again. So there's more going on here than we think.
One shot to the head, again. They get a new weapon and test it on the man again the next day. This time, they drain his blood. They inject some blood into a rabbit. The sun comes up, and the rabbit explodes like a bomb. A large bomb. Each day, they drain more blood from that vampire. They're going to use animals as living weapons.
As soon as they're exposed to sunlight, they explode.
Boom! They all get drunk and high the night before the big attack, and 2 of the guys decided it was a good idea to go in the cell and mess with the monster. It was not a good idea.
It was not a good idea.
All right, it seems back in the real world that every one of the cops who has watched a video has died and pulled out their own eyeballs. The last segment is called Holy Hell, where 2 girls come out and explain to Slater, the last cop, that they are a hardcore VHS nasties fetish group. They then beat Slater to death with a camera to make a new film of their own. And that whole segment took like a minute. It was kind of nothing.
Just a wraparound.
Yeah. All right, well, the creature and gore effects are surprisingly good. All the creatures in this are really good.
Yes.
The Rat Man, the Man at the Wake, and the Subject are particularly good. I'm not sure if the terror segment is just a bad parody of preppers, survivalists, and fanatics, or if it's just bad. I suspect it's just so cringe-inducing because it's so realistic. Now, Kevin says, yes, I think it was a good parody of militia extremists with vampires as the target of their target over-the-top patriotic zeal.
Did that make sense? Maybe
The target of their over-the-top. Okay, over-the-top.
Maybe I worded that awkwardly. Yeah. It was kind of like an alternate timeline.
But they weren't against vampires. There was only one vampire. In the beginning,
there was.
In the beginning, I was thinking, America had been taken over by vampires, and these were the heroes.
Oh, see, I thought that's what they were talking about.
They were just crazy government insurrectionists.
They were. Okay.
Yeah, they wanted.
And the vampire was their weapon.
There was one vampire. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, see, I misunderstood.
The normal, real world, other than that one vampire.
Okay, never mind then.
Yeah, I misunderstood what was going on in the beginning, which is one of the reasons I didn't like it.
Okay.
I thought, they were the freedom fighters and the vampires had taken over.
Oh, that was not the case. Okay.
No, there was just the one. Yeah. All right, overall, I think they saved the weakest segments for last, and the wraparound story really wasn't much of anything at all. I didn't understand the part with the video fetish whatevers in the last segment, and the cop thing there was just nothing there. Yeah. The first 3 full segments are definitely worth watching, though.
Yes.
Yes,
they are. The best by far.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, that is our show for this time. Join us next week, and we're going to watch 4 more good horror movies, mostly. We're going to watch Absentia from 2011, Phantasm II from 1994, It Conquered the World from 1956. Spoiler, it didn't.
It tried to.
And Underwater from 2020. Yeah, I think those were mostly all good ones.
I think mostly.
Yeah. All right, I'm Brian.
I'm Kevin.
We'll see you next week.
See ya.